But first off, I'm going to start by saying this. What's up, my dudes? Here we go, guys. So, just letting you guys know, the community manager of MX vs. ATV actually reached out to me and gave me some info on what their plans are with these different updates and kind of what they're going to do with the game. So, I wanted to fill you guys in on that a little bit, right? I think it's really important because I think the game is going to change quite a bit here in these first couple of weeks. So basically, they just came out with this first little patch update with the game, and the community manager said that they were basically just hitting the biggest bugs that they could work on at the time, and they also went in there and tightened up the cornering a little bit, right? So it's not as slidey and shit like it was drifting car simulator, right? Like I talked about in my review. They've already toned that down a little bit, and you can tell as soon as you get into the game, if you played it before this first update, it definitely feels better now, for damn sure. So there already seem to be, kind of got their finger on the pulse of what's going on here with their game. But the community manager wanted me to, he's basically asking me to give as much feedback as I could, because here in a couple of weeks, they're going to come out with another physics update, another gameplay update to the game, and that's going to be the last time they really do anything with the physics of the game for a while. That's what I was told. They've kind of done their first little patch to fix some of the bugs, tighten up the cornering a little bit, then they're taking community feedback for a couple of weeks, and then they're going to do that final physics update, and then they're going to move on to doing all of their standard stuff like, working on more track content and DLC and all that type of stuff. So I just thought that was a really important thing for, you guys to know about. Here in a couple of weeks, the feeling of the game is going to change, and then that's going to be basically the way the game is going to play for the foreseeable future after that. I don't know how long it's going to go until they mess with the physics again, but yeah, so that's what this video really is all about, is not so much what they've done in this first little patch, but giving my feedback on the physics stuff and the, really getting down to the nitty gritty of the issues with the feeling of the game and the physics of the game and the gameplay to try to make the game better. That's what the Spency Boy's been doing since day one, bro. Bro, I tell you what, Legends grows on you, dude. When you first get into the game, it's kind of weird and it's kind of goofy and it's kind of funky because it's like, what the fuck is this first official Monster Energy Supercross game, official MX vs. ATV all-out milestone game, what the hell is this thing? And then you kind of start to get in the flow a little bit. There is clutch boosting like you had back in the Alive days. I don't know, there's like big jumps and special lines and rhythms all over these tracks, even on the motocross tracks, where you kind of get in this little flow in the game. And it's growing on me, for sure. I'll definitely say that. And it should only get better, like MX vs. ATV All Out did. That was a very different game when it first came out. Then they kind of did those couple like physics updates, made it a little bit less bouncy, made some terrain deformation update. They did some stuff in there. And I think that same thing is going to happen to Legends. I honestly believe Legends has a little bit better of a base. And if they can tweak upon some of these buggy, weird... See, some of it's like hard to even tell what's a bug and what's like intended physics, right? One of the biggest issues with the entire game is the momentum of the bike itself does not feel very fluent. The whole entire momentum system of the game just feels kind of off. It feels kind of weird, right? Like when you're going from slow to medium speed to fast, that doesn't seem like a very smooth transition. It's like a very weird, There's a lot of times where you're like, why the fuck is the bike barely even moving and I'm wide ass open on the throttle? I could have my fucking finger taped to the throttle, right? But sometimes the 450's like barely moving, like you're in quicksand or you're in deep mud. And there's other times where it like, you perfectly get like a clutch boost or something, then it kind of feels good. But there's other times where it just feels good anyways. Like you just catch this weird, better momentum in the corners. And I get, that's kind of like sometimes you don't get enough momentum and sometimes you do get good momentum, but it's not really like that. It's like there's almost a problem with the momentum system of the game, I'm telling you, bro. And I don't know how much of that is a bug. I don't know what it is, but Reflex has a very fluent momentum feeling. That's what gives it such a good feeling, that going from stopped to slow to medium speed to fast to fucking warp speed, right? There's a good fluent transition between all those different speed levels within the game. And also, one really big issue with the game in general is like I was saying, I think the bike should have more acceleration. The 450s for sure should have like 25% more of an acceleration feeling. It's not to completely take away the slow feeling, but just a quicker experience from going from completely stopped to slow to medium speed. That range right there has got an issue. It's got a big problem in the game. It's a lot better once you kind of get up to speed, that going from like medium speed to top speed to warp speed. That shit feels pretty good, but it's the slower to fast that can feel really weird. Sometimes it can feel okay, but a lot of other times it just feels like dog shit. So those are some of the bigger things, and just like, I think the big thing is just that overall fixing the bugs to the physics of the game. And I wanted to say right here, whatever you do, MX versus ATV, do not fucking touch that pop-off system. Don't do it. It's great. It's skill gapped. It's difficult. It's not for the faint of heart, especially when you're jumping them big daddy tea sipping ripping jumps, right? You can actually pop off the bike. Sometimes even if you just barely overjump some of them big jumps, you pop off the bike. That's great. If you got a bunch of these super arcadey boys trying to tell you that they're popping off too much or the pop-off system's too extreme and all that, no, it's not. No, the fuck it's not. It makes the game fun. If they can't hit the big jumps, they need to let off the gas. You know what I mean? Them big jumps are there for a reason, for the big dogs, not for the little puppies. You know what I'm saying? You a lil dog. Lil dog. We talking Reggie Mill, dog. Oh, man. So, that's a big thing right there. Do not touch the pop-off system. Whatever you do, it's great. I would damn near say the pop-off system is perfect. You know what I mean? For the kind of game that it is and shit like that, I'd say it's pretty much perfect. But I think their big thing is the ground physics, right? They don't need to mess too much with the air physics right now. You kind of just need to leave that be. It's good enough for the kind of game that it is. It's the ground physics that's got the problem right now. It's kind of like if you had, MX versus ATV style, like roughness and motocross style tracks with the first official Monster Energy Supercross game's physics. Just imagine that, right? You know kind of how that game felt on the ground. It was one thing to be playing on Supercross tracks on the first official Monster Energy Supercross game, but you imagine taking those physics, kind of like when they came out with that one free ride track as DLC in the first Supercross game, as like that desert area, and you would get on those motocross tracks on that, and it just felt kind of weird. It's kind of like that, It is so similar to that. It's crazy. Like, the ground physics are so similar to if you were riding around on the one motocross track on the one paid DLC free ride track of the first official Monster Energy Supercross game. Okay? What the hell was that milestone? But whatever. So that's a bit of their problem. Like, the roughness, the digging in a rut, it just doesn't seem to really match up that great with the physics, the ground cornering physics of the game, okay? Seems to be a little bit of an issue. Another big issue is on a lot of the trail tracks, you get in this mode where when you get on anything that's even remotely like a straightaway or anything like that, that's not a tight section on the trail track, you could literally play the game with one hand and have your other hand over here guzzling the tea down. You know what I'm saying? You literally play the game with one hand. I shit you not. You could corner, throttle, do the whole fucking thing with one hand. When you're on the straightaway and longer sections, not even just a straightaway, but the just more wide open-y kind of sections of the trail tracks, because the bike doesn't react any. You know what I mean? It's literally like you're on a flat surface, just holding the gas down wide open, and there not being that crazy amount of like super top speed, fast speed, like Reflex has when you totally max out the top speed on your setup on Reflex. Even on the Omnicross tracks on Reflex, if you got them 450 set up maximum top speed, the bike reacts just enough where even on the super long, little bit flatter style areas where there's not a whole lot of corners on the Omnicross tracks, it's still a certain level of something on Reflex, because the bike's kind of trying to bounce out from underneath you a little bit. The suspension's kind of working underneath you a little bit. And the bike is going fast enough to kind of scare you a little bit, right? So it creates that fun factor, whereas on Legends, it's like the gameplay just goes completely flat whenever you get to those more wide open sections and you're sitting there just wide open on a 450. You reach the maximum speed the bike can go, and you're just like in this almost coasting mode. The suspension's not really reacting to anything on the ground. If you're not hitting any kind of jump and you're not cornering or anything, you're literally like doing nothing. And there's certain trail tracks in the game where half the track is like that. So you got to kind of remember that. I feel like the momentum and the physics system of the game on the 450, it's like it needs to feel more like acceleration-y, right? But then also like you've added another gear to the top speed of the bike at the top end of it. You know what I'm saying? At the very, when you're maximum top speed, it's like you need to add what would be another gear of top speed to make the trail tracks a little more fun. You know what I mean? You know what I'm saying there, boys? But I know it's kind of hard to do that at this point because, the tracks are made a certain way. The motocross tracks are made a certain way. It's kind of all those different things, but I definitely think if they can just clean up that like going from slow to medium speed, momentum physics area of the game, it'll be a lot better off, way better off. It's like the game needs more of a on the ground forwards and backwards suspension working. It's almost like your forks are not working all that much separate from your shock or something like that. Like when you're hitting roughness, it don't even really feel like the suspension is working underneath you. It's kind of weird. I don't know exactly how to explain it, but it's kind of like if you imagined, the first Supercross game on a rough motocross track. It's just a bizarre combination. If you've not played Legends, I challenge you to do that. Like, go back and play the first Supercross game on that free ride track and imagine there's roughness everywhere and ruts and shit instead of it just being kind of flat. That's kind of what it feels. It's like there's not enough inertia on the ground or something, right? There's not enough of that. And like I say, I don't really know how they're going to get that per se, but yeah, those are some of the bigger heavy hitter things to the physics. Like I said, I would focus way more on the ground physics, not as much on the air physics. I'm not saying the air physics are perfect, but at this point, if they're only going to be able to change so many things in these couple of weeks before this first, big physics change update thing, and then they're not going to mess with the physics for a while, they need to pay the fuck attention to these ground physics right now, The air physics, I mean, yeah, the whips could be loosened up just a little bit. Just a little bit, you know. The overall air physics in general could probably be just a little bit like more fluent-y, you know what I'm saying? But as a whole, I think the entire jumping, landing, seat bouncing, whipping, all that shit you do from the time you hit the base of that face of that jump to the time you land, all that, they need to keep that like it is right now. They don't need to touch any of that. They need to worry about on the fucking ground and in the corners and the momentum and the speed feeling of the game